Right, hello student. So you have been sent this video because you are on a work integrated learning program, or you are in the process of choosing one. And so this video has been sent to you in a way to prepare you to get the most out of your work integrated learning opportunity. This is selecting it, or if you have already selected, how do you get the best out of it? And so this is a little workshop between you and me in terms of getting the most out of your work integrated learning opportunity. Right, so I've got 3 questions that I'd like you to think about. Please don't just watch this video kind of, from a distance and not really engage with what I'm throwing at you. Grab a pen and paper, write down some notes. If you technology and you want to scribble on your laptop, by all means. Here are the 3 questions. All right. Is it just about any old kind of placement or internship or work integrated learning opportunity? Does what you are doing really matter? Does it matter to have a paid internship? Well, of course it is. I'm getting money. Is it about any placement? And I use the word placement in a broad term to kind of incorporate all the different kinds of things that are involved in work integrated learning. I also want you to consider, what is the industry that you are going into? So if your placement, internship, right, the broader concept, if it's about a company that's in healthcare, or it's a company in hospitality, what is the industry skills that are required in that industry? Do you know? Have you looked at a job description of that particular industry? If you could have an ideal job in that industry, let's just go with hospitality, hotel industry, right? You want to work in a hotel. Have you done a job description of your ideal job in the hotel industry to look at what are the requirements and what are the desirables? What would they like you to have? Think about that. Have you done that? Now, of course, this work integrated learning course has a section in it where you can do what's called the Skills Audit. And I talk you through how to do that, and I provide you with the resources. And that enables you to understand where you pitch yourself in terms of these skills. And what are these skills? We talk about skills in a general sense. I'm going to dip into some of that. And then what is this placement really all about? How does this fit in with your degree? Is your degree about getting a particular mark? Or is there something more? It's what we call in academia and research the difference between mastery and performance orientation motivation. So these are 3 questions I want you to think about. Is it just about any old work integrated learning experience? Is it about any kind of industry, or are you specifically interested in a particular industry? And this is kind of connected to question number 1. And are you aware of what are the demands within that industry? Work integrated learning is all about labor markets, and you need to understand what drives these labor markets. And then thirdly, what is your motivation as you go into this? I'm going to unpack this as part of this workshop. So let's dive in. Hopefully you've thought about those 3 questions. Right, in terms of work integrated learning, these are the kinds of things that are on offer in terms of work integrated learning. Now, I don't know the institution where you're from, because this is being recorded, just me talking to a screen. Different institutions in different places in the world call these things differently, and they offer very different opportunities. So I'm going to quickly run through some of these, and you can identify what is it that you are interested in if you haven't quite chosen yet. Does your institution offer that, or what are you signed up to? And again, you can have a better understanding of what that actually means. Now, apprenticeships is when you are already in employment. And you will probably know that because you've signed up to become what's called a degree apprenticeship. Now, this means 80% of your time is in the office, right, doing the actual work. But 20% is where you're engaged with the university, with the institution. And that 20% engagement is where we are trying to connect what you are learning in general within a particular theory to the workplace. And in essence, what you're doing is that 80% at workplace, that's a long-term placement. I ran a particular program where I looked after a 3-year placement. 3-year placement. In other words, the life of the degree, they were in this particular placement, and they also had an endpoint assessment at the end. In the United Kingdom, this is very popular. They're called higher degree apprenticeships, it's one of the key ways in which people integrate work and learning. But these people are already in work. Cooperative education, which must be at least 30% academic study for programs over 2 years in length, and 25% of the time for the program 2 years and shorter in length. That's cooperative education. Now, this term cooperative education is popular and is used in places like Canada and Australia. In some ways, there is some resemblance to what would be called apprenticeships in the UK. But there you have a definition of what it is. Internship and placements, these are the most popular ones that's often involved in work integrated learning. It's usually discipline specific, so it's part of a course, teaching, healthcare, business management. It occurs in the middle of the academic program, so kind of towards the end of your second year, between your second year and you starting your third year. That's traditionally where they place these. Or after all the academic coursework has been completed, you then do this right at the end, right? Before your graduation. In the UK, again, it's called an advanced practice, which, and I've looked after a few of these at MA level, at master's level. Again, the length of this may vary. Your internship placement may vary in terms of the length, the time, and it also may vary in terms of whether you're being paid or unpaid. You might be involved in entrepreneurships, which allows a student to leverage resources, space, mentorship, funding to engage in the early stage development of a business startup. It's what we call WIL, Entrepreneurial Work Integrated Learning Experiences. It's very new on the market, but you may be involved in one of these. Your institution may have what's called a incubator, a kind of organization within the institution that looks after partnerships with startups and helping them to be successful. And you may be involved in that. Service learning. So this integrates meaningful community service with classroom instruction and critical reflection. So this might be social entrepreneurial projects, might be working with charities, or you might just be doing something within the community. Often linked with, again, disciplines or courses which are specific to this kind of thing, such as social work, but not necessarily. You've got applied research projects which occur primarily in workplaces. So again, this might be a cooperative education program or an apprenticeship, and you are having to do a project in the workplace which addresses an issue within the workplace. Mandatory professional practicums or clinical placements. So this involves work experience under the supervision of an experienced, registered or licensed professional. So you might find this in law, you'll find this in teaching, in medicine, doctors, junior doctors, nurses, these kinds of things. And it's not, you can't opt in or out. It's part of the course. Field placements, which is intensive part-time, short-term, intensive hands-on practical experience in a setting relevant to your subject of study. So again, this might be, running a business project in a deprived area or community or another part of the world where you're applying your marketing or your business management skills. And then work experience, which intersperses 1 or 2 work terms, typically full-time, into an academic program. Kind of similar to internship placements, but again, it's just how your institution defines it. Right? So what of these opportunities are available in your institution? And why would you want these? Does it matter what kind you have? The answer is yes, it does matter. What do you want to get out of your time at university? And what are your career aspirations? Be clear about that, because that influences what is valuable to take up. If you are on one of these, how are you going to get the best out of this? Now, why is work integrated learning offered in universities? There's 2 main reasons. Reason number 1 is it enables you to practically see the relevance of the theory you're studying for the world of work. So you're not just doing theory for theory's sake, but there's an application in terms of what you're studying, and being put into a work context enables you to now see how that theory comes alive. Secondly, it gives you work experience. Particularly if you're a full-time student, so you're not a degree apprenticeship or something like that, you're a full-time student, you're separated from the world of work because you're a full-time student, but you don't want to be outside of the world of work for 3 years or 2 years or however long your degree is. You want to be able to dip your toes into that world of work and learn what it is to be in the world of work. Research says to us that when university graduates go into the workplace, the industry, the workplace says to the universities, we've got students who know a lot about the theory, but they don't know how to be in the workplace. They're struggling with just basic skills of communicating professionally, behaving professionally, being on time, producing reports that look professional. Now, these kinds of things are not necessarily theory that gets taught at university, but these things are important. So much so that, look, on a job description, a degree is a requirement, but actually what the industry values more is what you bring over and above your degree. And that is not taught in a theory way. That's what you learn in the experience of your university. So, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about two things. I'm talking about employability skills, and I'm talking about professional skills. Now, again, this work integrated learning course unpacks some of these, and there is another course that you can find under my name, which looks at employability skills very specifically. Employability skills is, it says what it does. It does what it says on the tin. It's about you getting a job. It's about employment. These skills is what will get you across the line. Where it says the requirement is the degree, well, everybody needs that degree. What sets you apart? What makes you different from somebody else who also has the degree? Marks maybe to some degree, although a lot of companies don't look at that nowadays. It's these skills. How better are you to the other interview candidates in terms of these employability skills? Professional skills is about you being in work already and how you get promoted, right? How you get the attention to become a manager. And the professional skills, these are the things that come up in annual reviews within work. So if you're a degree apprentice, right, so you're already in the world of work, you're not looking for employment, you are employed, your development of professional skills is probably more of a focus than that of employability skills. Now, you will notice that I've highlighted the words in red are where there's an overlap. They are problem solving, as an example. It's key in employability. It's key to get employment, but it's also key to continue to progress in employment, right? And you can see the similarities there. Problem solving, business awareness or acumen, communications, the way you communicate, working in a team, your reflective ability, your reflection, and negotiation. But I'm going to focus on the left-hand column, and I want you to think about these a little bit. What are your skills in terms of numeracy, right? Basic maths. What are your skills in terms of IT, being able to turn a computer on, being able to use it, being able to create a Word document, create a report, create a CV, create a PowerPoint, create an Excel business chart with financial information in it? What is your ability in terms of your IT skills? What is your ability in terms of critical thinking? Being able to engage with a debate or a discussion and unpack the arguments in such a way that you can sell a product to a customer, that you can convince somebody of a particular direction. Okay? There's a lot of fake news around nowadays. How do people know the difference between fake news and real news? Critical thinking. And it's a key ability within the workplace, because critical thinking will allow you to problem solve. Right? There's a close connection between the two of them. What's your organizational skills like? How well can you organize your time, your schedule? In a lot of businesses, it's a bit like a roller coaster. You have times where you're very busy, and there are times when things calm down a little bit. How well are you performing during those busy times? Are you able to do everything that's required of you? How do you pace yourself? How do you plan for that? How do you prioritize activities? And again, a lot of this is around problem solving. So when you get a problem, do you give up? Do you throw your toys at the cot? Or do you use your critical thinking, your reflection skills, and solve the problems that are in front of you? How aware are you of the business that you're wanting to work in? Business acumen. I'm an academic, a senior academic in universities. I'm aware of the university sector. I'm aware of how different universities position themselves, how they're competing, what matters. I'm aware when I'm in charge of creating curriculum for a whole new module process, what's important, where's the labor market going for the next 5 years. I'm aware of all of these kinds of things. Your communications, written communications, how well do you write an email? Your verbal communications, how you change that communication based on who you're speaking to, those whom you manage, your colleagues, and those who manage you. If you're speaking in the exact same way to all three, you don't understand communication. You're not adjusting it appropriate to the context within which you find yourself. How do you work in a team, particularly when that team doesn't agree with you or there's conflict within that team? Reflection. How do you learn from your experiences? Neuro-linguistic programming has this little chart which says basically there's two kinds of people. The cause and effect line, right? Depends which side you're on. The cause and effect. Some people are always the victim. They're always affected by something else, and so they blame. Other people recognize that what they can control, they control. What they can shape, they shape. They take responsibility for their direction. Right? Reflection. Recognizing what you need to change within yourself, recognizing what you need to view differently in your environment. Analytical skills, being able to break things down and therefore work through complexity. Your management skills, managing your time, managing your own emotions, managing your tasks, prioritizing. Negotiation in conflict as well as any other kind of context within teams. Research, knowing where to find something rather than waiting for it to be spoon-fed and to be given to you. And then your professionalism, how you come across. Sadly, as I work in the university, some students add me on LinkedIn, and the way in which they behave on a platform which everybody can see. LinkedIn is not something where you add a friend. People can see your posts. You can't have private posts. And the way in which they vent, the language they use, it's shocking. And employers, future employers, they look at these kinds of social medias. So all of this is about employability skills. Now, while you are going to be going on your work integrated learning experience, whatever it is, placement, internship, look at this list on the left-hand side. Which of these are you not good in? And how can you use your placement or internship opportunity to develop these particular things? Now, you'll remember I asked you in the beginning, are you aware of your industry? So if you want to go into the hotel industry and you want to work in hotels, which of these employability skills is a high priority within the hotel industry? Now, again, this will vary depending on what you're doing. If you're frontline, you're with the customer, then things like communication will be vitally important. If you're in the office and you're organizing, say you're working in human resource management, management and organizational skills will probably be quite important, and professionalism. So it's not just about some kind of generic, I use the analogy, it's like shooting an arrow up in the air, hoping to hit a bird, hoping that a bird flies over in terms of a target, right? An analogy. No, it's being very proactive about what is it that you are gonna enable, draw out of your placement and internship. You need to go into your placement and internship with a clear idea of what it is you want to get out of it. Oh, I just want experience. Experience of what? That's still so vague and so general. Evaluate your skills. If you need to develop your problem-solving ability, tell that to your placement manager or your internship manager so that they can focus on that to give you feedback. If you are good at a particular area, look at how you can produce something which is evidence of that you can use in job applications. Be more proactive as you go into this. Don't just take each day as it comes and, at the end, oh, there we go, I've done my placement. What did you gain as a result of it? Don't just shoot an arrow up in the air hoping that it will hit something. This is a research poster I submitted at ASSET, which is a UK-based work integrated learning organization. And the poster, I'm just going to talk you through it because it has a direct link to you as a student going on a placement or internship. The title of the research, and I'm working with a degree apprenticeship here, a guy called Miles Weston. This is an ongoing critical understanding about the motivation of degree apprentices and higher education in order to aid students' engagement. Now, you can take out the word degree apprentices and you can put in any other placement there. Placement, internship, practicum. What motivates you in an experience where you are learning within the workplace? Now, look at these little posts that I found on LinkedIn. This is anybody can see these posts. Anybody. So the first post on the left-hand side, 90% of the jobs advertised on LinkedIn do not require a degree. Now, bearing in mind, if a job does not require a degree, we are speaking about an unskilled labor position. Skilled labor pays more. That's why you need the degree, right? Because it's a skilled position. So that sentence already tells me, is the person aware of how labor markets are formed? And depending on which country you're in, some countries trade labor. They trade unskilled labor. Other countries trade skilled labor. And so therefore they emphasize the development of skilled labor. Now the UK is a skilled labor market. We trade skilled labor. We, in terms of competition, compete with other countries based on skilled labor. Now, does it mean we don't have any unskilled labor? Of course we do. We need people to pack shelves. We need people to manufacture, things like that. But the key emphasis in the UK is skilled labor. Now, this is a post from a person in the UK. This says to me they don't have a clear understanding about the industry. And yet 90% of jobs advertised on LinkedIn ask for one. Now, what they're saying is, if you don't need one, why are you asking for one? It's the difference between unskilled and skilled labor. Personally, I don't care whether you have a degree or not. I care whether you can do the job. Right? Another assumption, critical thinking. Number one, well, it depends what kind of job you want me to do. If you want me to be a doctor and operate on you, you want me to have a degree? I think you do. If you want me to come and fix your gas boiler, and if I don't know what I'm doing, the whole place could explode, I think you want me to know what I'm doing in terms of theory. If you want me to pack a shelf, you want me to, put a bolt on a wheel, in terms of kind of manufacturing, and I'm generalizing here, forgive me. Yes, then you just need to do a job. You need to understand your industry and what is required within your industry. So here they say, medicine, law, and other professions do not require a degree aside. Well, I beg to differ, they do. They do. That's what makes professions, is the fact that there is very strict entry requirements. You have to meet certain requirements. You have to study, and it's a long period of study. Go and look it up. That's what makes professions, traditional professions. At the end of that phase, you are then again evaluated. Doctors have a medical bar, accountants have an accounting bar, etc., etc. And you are then constantly regulated throughout that process because professions self-regulate. So all the systems are in place. Then they ask the question, should employers require candidates to have a degree when the job they're advertising doesn't actually require one? Now, this again is about labor markets. Human resource management needs to be doing job analysis on a regular basis, and they need to clearly identify, does this role require a degree? Now, a degree is not just about theory. A degree is about the socialized process that happens during the time of you studying a degree. It's the kind of stuff that happens to you without you realizing it. Think about that logically. From the first year at university to the last, you are learning to follow process. If you don't like your mark, how you go through the process. You're learning about regulation. You are learning about referencing, whether it's Harvard, Chicago, APA. Again, you're following process. Your lecturer tells you how to address them appropriately. They address you appropriately. There's no foul language in class. You are being professionalized. Now, if you don't have a 3-year context within which that takes place, where does that take place? There's a misunderstanding of what you are gaining from experience. It's not just about theory in terms of learning. Let's look at the one in the middle. Today I picked up my son from university for the final year, 6 weeks in, and he's had a dreadful time, so much so he's decided to leave. And this post was done during COVID-19. All online lesson means he has no interaction with his peers and no peer-to-peer support or learning. Now that's a bad design of a university. I asked you the question, does what kind of placement matter? Yes. What is the quality of what is being provided? Who's in charge and how are they doing it? Don't commit yourself to something which you then can't back out of, and it's going to be bad. And you probably knew it was going to be bad if you'd done your research beforehand. Online lessons with all the chat function turned off so they can't even ask questions. That's just bad teaching. And it's not to do with universities in general. It's got to do with that particular institution where they're doing a really bad job at online teaching. 3 phone calls and 4 emails to actually find out who is his personal tutor as no one had introduced themselves to him. As a young 18-year-old who's currently being formally assessed for autism, he needed more guidance and support, but it just wasn't there. There is a part that he wasn't enjoying, the topic he's set his heart on, but I think that the adapted way of learning just wasn't for him, which isn't helped by one of the main tutors spending 20 minutes in one lesson telling them they aren't as good as last year's students. I've told him that uni is not the only way to gain a good job or career, and right now my only focus is his mental health. Now that is correct. University is not the only way to a good career or a good job. If you understand your industry, what is your goals? What are your aspirations? If your aspirations are in an industry which requires skilled labor, you do require a university degree. My son is super smart, painfully shy and socially awkward. I love him for all these reasons that he's different. I'm so proud of him. So clearly a mum who is struggling with her child's experience of university. Now, one of the key things which set a lot of universities apart during COVID-19 is that for many of them, they were trying to duplicate the classroom, but they were not really working hard at duplicating the campus experience. Now, be that as may, if they haven't done really well on online teaching, they've returned to face-to-face. But you get the point here about understanding your industry and doing your research in terms of which placements or internships will give you the best context to get the best out of it. A student responded to this mom's text. This student is a degree apprentice. The whole higher education system is a joke. This is a final year student. I knew them. And this really upset me. They're a very nice student, but I had no idea that this was going on. I had no idea. They were not expressing this in an appropriate context so that we could change this experience for them. University is no longer the way forward, in my humble opinion. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely appreciate the value of a degree. Does he? And the skills demonstrated and acquired through one. Does he? But having almost completed my degree apprenticeship at a university in London, I've discovered that the real value has come from my industry experience at work, significantly more so than the degree itself. Now, what this highlights to me is the connection between the institution, the student, and the industry. And these connections need to be really strong. Now, if you're a student going on an internship, that's out of your hands. You don't have much influence over that. But what you can do is, if you don't feel like you're gaining anything from your university degree, well, what is within your power to change in terms of that? Is it about your engagement with lecturers? Is it your engagement with the lecturers' experiences? Is it your engagement with the theory? You can't change the system, but what you can change, you need to focus on. What can you change in terms of that? Let's continue reading. It is a great shame that there's a must-have a degree, seems to be a requirement for almost everything these days. Now, again, this is a UK student. The reason why he's picking up on that emphasis is because he's in the UK, which is a skilled labour market. The fact that he's kicking against us again, which is sad, as a final year student, they don't have a decent, accurate understanding of the UK labour market. I used to live in Kuwait, and you can't even drive a car out there without a degree. Now again, he's trying to suggest that Kuwait and the UK might be the same or might be different. It's about labour markets. I read just yesterday about a girl who had graduated from university with a reputable law degree and had been refused an application for a job at McDonald's. Yes, because she's overqualified. She's going to behave like a manager because of the socialization process. It's about pitching yourself correctly in the market. And this is what's not being understood here. The whole system is a complete mess. No, the system is the system. What's a mess is you not understanding that system and how you fit into it and how to get the most out of it. And he says, and young people are the ones suffering the most. I disagree again. I don't think young people overall are doing that. I think what's happening is the fact that young people will be struggling because they don't understand how they fit into this. All the best to you and your son. I hope you're able to pursue his own passion, so on and so on. So this set the rationale for this research, and so we started to look at how do students engage with their learning? How do they engage with placements and internships? Now this is interesting here. This is some research done by Hoskins and Newstead in 2003. The reasons why students attend university, a means to an end. I want to get a better job. I want to have a better future. Okay, 66% of students. But how? Understanding how, right? All of what we've just looked at in here in the LinkedIn posts. That's what's important. 24% only said for personal development. And this is really important, this personal development. And I'm going to come back to this in a minute. But only 24% get it. Now, are you doing a placement or an internship because it's a means to an end? Oh, it will give me what I need on my CV in terms of work experience. But you are not really trying to grow out of the experience. That's really important. That's the personal development element. And then 10% of the students are just there because they've got no idea what else to do. Parents probably said, well, you're not going to sit around at home, off you go to university. All right, so what do we do? Some autobiographical reflections by an academic supervisor, which is myself, and this higher degree apprentice student, and as well as mixed methods using surveys of 23 degree apprentices and then 16 traditional students, interviewing them and looking at the differences. Now, what we noticed here, so if you look at the graph down on the left-hand corner, is the blue line represents degree apprentices, and the orange line represents traditional students. In other words, they're not engaged in a full-time work placement of any kind. You will notice that those that are not already employed looked to the degree as the highest priority. Now, again, yes, of course, if you're looking to get a graduate job, a skilled labor job, your degree is important. But the employers are not just looking for that degree. They're looking for all the employability skills. So knowledge is very high because it's linked to all the theory that you're being taught. But look at the other ones in terms of experience. Look how low experience is. Very, very low. And bizarrely, for those on degree apprenticeships, those in placements, in internships, they are actually not, again, it's even lower than those traditional students in terms of experience. What does this say about placements and internships? It says that it's been viewed as a means to an end. That's what the data is saying from this small sample of these particular students. You are going to miss the opportunities if you just view it in that particular way. Now, what's really important here is the difference between what's called a learning goal or performance orientation towards mastery orientation compared to goal orientation or what's called performance orientation. What's the difference? When you are simply viewing something as a means to an end, you are wanting to tick boxes that please somebody else. I want a 2-1 in my degree, etc., etc. But you yourself, there's no personal development. That's when you enter what's called mastery. Mastery. When you're just wanting to keep somebody else happy, it's what we call learning as a transaction. I've paid my student fees, you teach me, I hope to get a 2-1, a means to an end. Or learning as a competition. I've paid my student fees, you teach me, I want to get a 2-1 so that I'm better than a 2-2, which will give me that better job. But what you're still clearly focusing on is just simply that end motivation goal of keeping somebody else happy. It's what we call an extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is recognizing all of that. I'm not saying that's not important. But over and above all of that, you recognize that actually you've got your own career aspirations and your own career ambitions, and you are trying to align your experience on your placements, on your internship, to learn over and above that which is on the curriculum. Because learning is a journey, and you are picking up luggage along the way that you will then use in your future. And that luggage you're picking up along the way, good baggage, is the employability skills, enhancing your communication, enhancing your leadership, enhancing your team working skills. You are becoming a master within your industry, which then makes you attractive and competitive. And again, the DAs prioritized degrees significantly more than traditional students. So these are students who are in an internship and a placement, and sadly, they're missing the point of the experience that they're in. They're missing the point. They're just focused on the extrinsic motivations rather than the personal development which it can offer them. Most students were performance avoidance led, which had been shown to have a negative impact on long-term career development. It's about creating a career passport, because learning is a journey. Getting stamps in your learning passport along the way, the experience you're gaining, the stories you can tell. It's not just about regurgitating the theory that you are learning. I hope this is challenging you in terms of getting ready for your placement and internship. What is it that you want to get out of this experience in terms of your own personal development? Go back to those skills. What of these skills do you need to develop? What needs to be a priority? I did some research around reflection. See that little picture on the top right-hand corner, the same old results, the same old thinking, the same old results. That's the square that's kind of hidden behind there. Einstein had a wonderful quote. He said, "Only a fool does the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result." If you want to make a change in your career, if you want to be successful in your ambitions, you cannot do the same old things expecting a different result. You have to use your experiences to evaluate what is going wrong here. How can I take responsibility for myself in the way in which I'm developing? That student on the LinkedIn here on the right-hand side, what a waste my 3 years has been. Why? Because somebody else has wasted it for you? Or because you have not taken opportunities that have been given to you to just draw out of it what you possibly can? You see, being a master in something, right? Mastery goals, learning goals, is not just, let me use an analogy. I started surfing when I was a teenager, and I've been surfing for 30-something years, surfed different surf spots all over the place. Now, if surfing is seen as a skill, I'm not just mastering surfing in the sense that I can stand up on a board and go straight. No, I've mastered the skill that I can do tricks that allow me to go up into the air. I can go inside the wave in a tube. I can read different waves, a reef break, a sand break, a point break. I can read the wave as it comes to me. I know where are the critical places in the wave. Did I understand all of that by reading a book? No. I learned that through doing over and over and over again, and learning from my doing to master what it is that I'm doing. To such a degree that I don't just surf in terms of I'm a surfer, but that when you watch me surfing, right, it's almost an art in terms of what I'm doing. Now, I'm a little bit older, so I'm a little bit rustier and I'm a bit sticky now, But back in my day, it was an art to watch me surfing. I remember one day surfing in South Africa on a beach in Port Elizabeth. I had a bit of a rough day, so I had a lot of aggression in me, and I was taking it out on the waves, and I was surfing this wave right the way down into the shallows. When one of the schoolmates saw me, a guy called Howard, and he looked up and he went, "Oh, Trevor, it's you. I hadn't realized you surf so well." Now, what caught his attention wasn't the fact that I have the skill of surfing. What caught his attention is that he didn't know I surfed so well. I had mastered the skill to such a degree that I'd become an artist in my own way, in the way in which I express that skill. When somebody makes a surfboard, it's not just about making a surfboard. It's about understanding the dimensions, how a person's weight, size, height influences the way in which this board will interact with them, and putting beautiful designs on it. Do those designs make any kind of functional difference? No, but it makes it look beautiful. There is an art in the skill that begins to come through. It's not just a bland skill, I can do this, but I do it artistically. There's an element of beauty that begins to come out in the way in which you do this. Are you beautiful at communication? Are you beautiful at teamwork? It's not just about, I get a 9 out of 10 for teamwork because I work well in a team. Well, what does everybody else think about it? Do you inspire them? Now, the only way that you can engage with that kind of thinking is by getting deeper in terms of the skill of reflection. Now, I did some research. I was running a particular module which taught students how to reflect. And this is one of the things I pick up at a lot of universities. They just assume you know how to reflect. It's a skill. You have to be taught it. And what I was interested in is how soon do they start to master the skill? Not only will they master it in terms of being able to regurgitate the theory and the models, but actually begin to do it. They don't just learn how to, what a bicycle is. They cycle the bicycle, and they cycle it in such a way that it becomes an art, becomes a beauty. How much time is needed? Now, this was a 3-hour session across 10 weeks. They needed 7 weeks to start to begin to master the skill, which was then reflected in the results. But what they produced for the assessment revealed the beauty of the skill. 7 weeks. 7 times 3, that's 21 hours of working and engaging, not just attendance, but in that attendance, working, writing a journal, getting feedback on that journal, working with somebody like me, coaching you to go deeper. 7 weeks in order to start mastering that skill. How long is your placement? What are you hoping to master in that time frame? And not just, I'm a communicator. I'm a beautiful communicator. It takes time, and you want to start from week 1 with a clear understanding that this is what you're seeking to achieve. Jennifer Moon is one of my favorite authors on reflection, and the reason being is I love these stages that she offers us. You notice things. You notice the skills that are required. I've just given you the list. You notice what's required in your industry. But if you don't make sense of that, if you don't work with that, to what degree do I have these skills? Have I mastered these skills? Unless you make sense of that and make meaning, nothing changes. You will continue in the same old habits, but for some bizarre reason expecting a different result. You see, experiential learning, the learning that takes place from experience, if done correctly, changes you. Remember the stat about personal development? 24% are desiring personal development. How does personal development happen? You write it on a piece of paper, put it under your pillow, magic fairy sprinkles dust, and the next day all of a sudden, personal development. This is how personal development happens. When you work with your experience, that final year student complained that they learned nothing in the 3 years. They did not make sense of their experience. They didn't make meaning. They didn't work with that meaning, and they did not transform their own learning. And by transforming their learning, they would have transformed their experience. You are going on an internship or placement. You will miss the opportunity that this can give you if you do not engage with the experience on a personal development level. It's not just about learning about the world of work and how to manipulate things in order for you to get further in career and make money. It's about what you are becoming as a person. And this is the preparation that you need before you start it, and what you need to be doing all the way through. If you have a bad day and your boss shouts at you and your colleagues are disappointed, what are you taking away? Make sense of that. Make meaning. Work with that meaning and transform yourself. The employability skills don't just happen. They happen through a process of transformation. This is the final one I want to leave with you to think about as you prepare for your internship. What experience does is it makes us aware of what we're not good at. And it makes us aware of what we are good at. But we may not be aware of it. We're in a position of what's called unconscious incompetence. We think we're brilliant. We think we're this. We think we're that. The learner is unaware of his or her lack of a particular skill. When you go into an experience and you work with meaning, you work with your experience, what it does is it brings to the surface the areas that you are weak in, and you become conscious of those weaknesses. Now, what a lot of learners do, as soon as they become conscious incompetence, when they become aware of this, neuro-linguistic programming, the cause and effect line, they either say it's everybody else's fault, my degree was a waste of time, it was their fault, or you take responsibility of that experience, you work with the meaning, and what's within your power, you change. And when you work with the meaning, and you take responsibility for what you can take responsibility for, and you change what you can change in yourself and in your context, and it might be your attitude about your context, you then begin what's called the conscious competence. You're beginning to work on that particular weakness, and you are focused on it. You're consciously working on it to improve it, to get to a position where you then become competent in that skill. Not just, I can make surfboards, but that you make beautiful surfboards. Not just now that you're a good communicator. You're a beautiful communicator. Mastery. You can see now through this process that this is why it's not just a means to an end. You will not get to the end if that's the approach you take. You will be stuck in stages 1 and 2. You will not progress to stage 3 here, to the conscious competence. It's only when personal development becomes your focus, when you look to become a master, to become a specialist, to become beautiful at what you're doing, do you move into the conscious competence. And when you continue to work at that particular skill, that you do it without even thinking, it becomes unconscious competence. It becomes natural. I remember a couple of years ago when everything started to move online, I moved a particular module online that I was responsible for. And the one tutor came back to me and said, wow, I've looked at what you've done. It's amazing. How do you do it? And for me, it's just what I do. It's the experience I have of years and years being involved in higher education, communication, training and development. I just know how to do these things. Only when I have to teach it and unpack it for somebody else do I have to move to the stage of conscious competence, make myself aware again of the various stages so that I can teach somebody else who's a novice or who is intermediate. You are going to be going into a placement. What you will get out of it is what you are going to be putting into it. Do not just let experience happen, stumbling your way through every day. Go in with intention. Thank you.